Hi subscribers and welcome back to the channel. Today we're joined by Mr. Jonathan Laws, all the way from Greenwich, right next to the O2 Arena. John, how are you this morning?
Yeah, not bad. Just back from my old man's 60th birthday. So yeah, full of pasta and pizza and red wine. I'm raring to go.
Nice, you were in Rome, right?
Yes, correct.
Nice. How many nights did you stay?
3.
Ah, nice. Long weekend. Okay, so on to more disturbing matters in the financial industry. Today we're going to be talking about Brite Advisors news and complaints and the liquidation explained. So John, for anyone just tuning in or maybe anyone who missed it, you probably didn't miss it if you're invested inside Brite, can you please summarize what has happened so far with Brite Advisors? And just to let you know, the next question is going to be, and what is the latest Brite Advisors news? So feel free to give us a backdrop and summary, and then go into like what has been the latest news in the past week or so.
Yeah, so essentially Brite Advisors is a multinational financial advice firm that is what's known as an integrated model. So not only did they, offer the advice in various countries where it looks like the USA, Australia, Europe, South Africa were their main areas, but they also had their own investment platform as well, for which they were actually putting on the vast majority of their clients. Now, not the only platform or type of investment structure they use, but it's the vast majority of assets there. And what's happened is this platform that looked great and it was all singing and dancing and all seemed to be really good value and low cost and all the rest of it, as it turns out, there was unfortunately rather nefarious reasons for the fact it was so low cost, and that is fundamentally that there were custodian issues, access issues, and now we're in a position with the money that was custodied on that platform, for which people were receiving advice and investment advice. Whilst there was nothing wrong with the investments themselves, it turns out that the actual underlying holdings have potentially, the money's not all there, and it's been accessed, illegally or in contravention of all the custody rules. So what's happened is a lot of clients have got in contact, and there's been legal action, mainly coming from both Australia and the US regulator. That's both from securing client assets, but also from looking at more regulatory breaches and looking for punishment and stuff. So there's a lot of people out there sitting on their money all invested with a financial advisor who might not be working for the firm anymore, isn't sure if their money is all secure. And that's the situation we're currently in at the moment whilst we're going through the court and legal processes.
So at the time of recording, what was sort of the latest updates on this, and what do we see coming in the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, so it looked like, there was circa $700 million US sitting on this platform. And there are all sorts of, there have been all sorts of disclosures. So the money itself was actually held by the Brite Australia entity. So whether you were in the US getting advice from Brite USA, or you were in South Africa getting advice from Brite South Africa, if you were on the Brite platform, your money was held through their Australian entity. And this Australian entity is now being liquidated or put into administration, forced to shut down by the Australian regulators. And they are trying to make sure as they can secure as much client money as possible by making sure no one connected with it could siphon off any more funds, and they could do their best to reconcile what is missing. So at the latest disclosures, it's looked like circa 10%, perhaps up to 15%. Might be unaccounted for. Now that doesn't mean it's ultimately not going to be accounted for. That just means there's money that isn't obviously readily visible to them, that they will need to go off and do investigations and all sorts of kind of forensic accounting work to be able to make sure, to try and obtain and make sure clients lose as little as possible during this entire situation.
And when you talk about money not necessarily all being accounted for, was this the part in relation to money apparently being transferred to Brite Advisors Hong Kong? We were just filming a video this morning about Gibraltar Broadcasting Corporation and the two Gibraltar-based QROPs that have just gone into administration. Is that what you were referring to, or something else?
No, it's slightly different. So what's happened is you've got the $700 million or whatever that's on the platform. and for whatever reason, when they've gone in to look at the banking records and to look at the client's accounts, there's about $69 million there that was unaccounted for and missing. Now, there is also another situation where inexplicably, a large chunk of money, over $100 million, was sent to Brite Hong Kong. So technically, Brite's group is headquartered in Hong Kong with some sort of undisclosed ownership scheme, ownership arrangement that we're not currently privy to. And then the receivers who in Australia then went to the Brite entity and tried to get the money sent back. And as it turns out, not all the money was sent back. So there's another circa $10 million missing there. So all in all, you've got a couple of areas there where there's money that's unaccounted for, and they are still going through all the motions to figure out where all that is, and how best to get it back for the clients.
Okay, understood. So Jonathan, next on my list is, what guidance would you give to clients who are angry and want to make Brite Advisor complaints?
Yeah, so the first thing to say is completely and utterly understandable. Having gone through this with 30 or 40 clients now, just personally, and not sure quite what the number is with Cameron James, but it's quite extensive. That your anger is well stated, and obviously wanting to take the firm to task for it is completely understandable as well. So what we are kind of suggesting is, and when I speak with clients, it is to first of all deep breath. It is what it is, and what you got to do now is make sure you're putting your best foot forward, and how you approach what to do with this. So yes, absolutely get in touch with the receivers. Where there's links, there'll be links on the bottom of this under this video, and you've already seen any communications of us already, any of our blogs. There are also links there for you to help you get in touch with the receivers. They've got a very good website portal page for you to access lots of updates and contact details and whatnot. Log the fact you're a client, log the fact that this is, let them know the amount of money you believe you have when you last saw, because one of the big problems is they weren't paying their bills with Salesforce, who is the underlying infrastructure software for the platform. So clients have gone, I think it's best part 6 months now without actually being able to log on and see their account live, which is obviously rather petrifying, I'd imagine. So mentioning, one way to understate it. So get in touch with the receivers, let them know. Obviously it is no surprise that you have a massive distrust for financial advisors. Given the situation, there's a decent chance if you were involved with a previous iteration or connected firm in the past, so this is the second time you've gone down the road with using a financial advisor and been, for want of a better word, burnt. So making sure you don't make it third time's a charm. This time you need to make sure that you do your proper due diligence. Now, many of you will be in a situation where whether you're in a QOps or a certain jurisdiction where using the services of another financial advisor is going to be all but required, and you need to make sure that financial advisor you're looking to use isn't of the same ilk as the previous one or two you may have used. That's got yourself in the situation. So you need to do your due diligence, research, speak to other advisors, read reviews, speak to existing clients, go through the formal advice process. What we're trying to say to clients is yes, it's awful. Yes, the platforms, kaput. That all the firms have either shut down and clients left, or they're hanging by a thread. And you're going to need to find someone else. So go through that process, but almost pretend as if there is nothing untoward, and you just want a proper independent third party review of the current situation, and what is a better option. Because to be honest, if we kind of remove the kind of the actual platform issues and regulatory issues, when you actually look at the service that was provided from the financial advisors, which was minimal in most cases, there are obviously it is inconsistent, and some are good and some are bad, as is the case with a lot of these larger firms. You need to look at it and say to yourself, right, if I'm looking at this fully independently, was I actually getting good financial planning? Was someone helping me deal with the cash flow modeling? Was I getting help with this? Was I getting prompted to look at state benefits and plan ahead accordingly? Also, a lot of the investment portfolios, are pretty rubbish, for want of a better word. Far too much cash, far too heavily concentrated in the UK, buying and selling for little rhyme or reason, or multiple currencies that didn't really line up. So there's a very good chance that the reasons to use another advisor, another platform, go far beyond just the fact that this platform is no longer going to be an option, because there's a lot more value you should have been obtaining, even for their relatively low or below market costs, which, as it turns out, we know why they were below market, because they were doing other things with it.
Yeah, understood. So just to clarify that point then, can people currently transfer out of Brite Advisors?
So if you're on, it's all to do with whether you're on the Brite platform. So if you're a Brite Advisor client and you're on another platform, or you're on a bond like an Utmost or one of the old quilted bonds or an RL360, then there is no reason why you wouldn't be able to transfer out. But if you're on the Brite platform, that is currently frozen. So whilst there has been the ability for withdrawals to be made, regular withdrawals, any kind of tax-free cash to be done, and for those of you in extenuating circumstances, in fact, I have one person I'm dealing with who managed to get 30% of his money out, which he had a specific need for. Again, don't go rushing into making any decisions, because there's a good chance that if you don't need the money, taking it out now is just going to be a big tax hit, and end up going to cost you down the road. And obviously all will be accounted for when they do their big kind of catch-all reconciliation at the end. So don't panic and just start drawing money out because you think it's now or never. That will all come out in the wash. But no, if you are in a situation where you're on the platform, transferring out is not currently an option. Although you can still do a change of agency with an advisor you like. They can still get plugged into your existing pension, whether that's a Kia Ops or a SIP. But no, the ability to transfer out to a new provider or a new platform is not currently on the table.
So just on that point then, you're saying that people will have the opportunity to change financial advisor and update the underlying portfolio, even if it's on the Brite Advisors platform?
You can change the advisor, you can't change the portfolio. There's no trading or anything like that going on, but you can plug in, you can change your advisor so your existing person you want to use will have full information, be able to obtain anything they need from the existing scheme, whether that's figuring out all your existing, your latest portfolio, or the charges you were paying, or what's involved in getting the heck out of there. You can do all of that, but changing the portfolio for those on the platform is not an option.
Okay, understood. So what could be the positives of leaving Brite Advisors? Either A, through a change of agency now to another financial advisor, and then you're in the place that you want to be advised moving forward, or potentially if and when the platform becomes the ability for transfers out to happen, what do you think are some of the possible generic advantages or positives that clients could take from that?
Yeah, so obviously the advantages of kind of removing the Brite Advisors from the equation, obviously the platform will still remain, but removing the actual advisor you had and putting in someone there, who's locally regulated to help you, there's many there. Obviously there is the one angle that a lot of your existing advisor, there's a good chance, your existing advisor is no longer an employee of Brite or won't be for very much longer. So in reality, you don't really have a financial advisor attached to the pension in the first place anyway. So there's that kind of angle where your advisor's left you hanging for want of a better word. But the other benefits are obviously once McGrath Nicol, who are the receivers, come out and say, yes, here you go, now we're all ready to go, we've reconciled everything, X is missing, well, we're going to help you sort that out at a later date, or however they end up doing it, and you can transfer out to a new platform, a new provider, it's going to be a bit like the floodgates opening. And for those who have done the change of agency, who know exactly what they want to do, who know where they're going, know who they're using, there will be a material advantage there, because they will have their proverbial finger on the trigger ready to go, paperwork done, and all the rest of it ready to submit as soon as the option comes on the table. Whereas if you wait, then you run the risk that, okay, great, now I can access my money, now I've actually got to go and find someone. And as we all know, when that's going to happen, it's going to be blood in the water, the sharks are going to appear, and your chance of repeating the mistakes you made first 1 or 2 times are going to exponentially higher, because you're going to have people pressuring you to take over, which unfortunately is all too common in financial advisors offshore. Heck, all too common in the UK as well. So and the US. So you need to look at it like that and try and make this decision now, because obviously it will also bring additional peace of mind of knowing you've done everything you can at this stage from an actual get to a better situation point of view.
Yeah, and 2 bonus questions on that. The first of which is, in a hypothetical situation, say of the circa 700 million US dollar of assets that you mentioned, and you mentioned roughly there was $100 million unaccounted for, or whatever the final figure may be. We're not privy to that. In a situation where, say, there were, let's keep it very simple, 700 clients, and there were 700 million, and each client was on average of $1 million. What would happen potentially towards the end of that bucket of cash if there's $100 million missing? And I don't expect you to necessarily know the answer to this, John, but what would happen in practice there if there's not enough money to cover the amount that there's supposed to be? Do you think when it's in receivership, they would split it out equally, so everyone would share a burden of the money that's unaccounted for, or would it have to be made up, or would it be the first people out get their money in full? I mean, I literally don't know the answer. I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, so I obviously Australia is not my specific area of expertise, but I personally have done quite a few liquidations and administrations back in my other life at PwC, including with the Stanley Gibbons liquidation. If I ever see another stamp, it gives me nightmares. Where what will happen is it's very likely any kind of loss attributable to Brite Advisors and clients will be subject to legal action taking and all the rest of all the attempts to reclaim it will be pro rata applied to accounts based on the size. So it is very likely that if, say, 10% of the money is ultimately missing, whatever value you have on the day they cash you and are ready to transfer to leave, you will end up with a 10% haircut to that. So that is likely to be the case. And of course, if you've made any withdrawals or anything like that, that's all going to be taken into account. Some of you in Brite USA might have been receiving some emails from the CEO there talking about this ring fencing of Brite USA. They in all the literature they call it a commingled account, and if you've read anything the SEC put out in their charging document, they called it this commingled account. And the idea was Brite USA are claiming they segregated it and they have their own account and should be subject to the thing. But from all the disclosures and comments from the receivers, they've basically poo-pooed that and said that's nonsense and delusion, and that it's all together and you're all in the same boat. So yes, there is talk of Brite USA being separate, but all the indications are that never actually materialized, and everything has been kind of put together in one giant slush fund, which again violates all sorts of custodial rules and regulations. So again, there's another kind of issue, and another kind of shows you the lack of oversight and all the rest of it that was going on there.
Yeah, and the other bonus question was, when you're dealing and working with all of these Brite clients, what's the general demeanor? Like, people are kind of saying, oh, I always felt like there was something going on, or actually I was really happy, had a great relationship with my financial advisor, this completely took me by surprise or shock, or are people just so angry that they're not even opening up about stuff like that? What's your experience? You dealt with a lot of Brite clients now.
It really is a very broad spectrum of clients, client reactions out there. You've got some who are very negative and pessimistic and glass half full, and all my money's going to be gone, and all this. And then you have some who are kind of, more laissez-faire. Perhaps they're on average, I found perhaps the wealthier clients, where it's a smaller portion of their relatives, still a lot of money, of course, but there's still a relative portion. And they've gone, oh, well, it's 10%, 20%, a bad day in the bad month in the market, you can lose that. And they're kind of looking at it glass half full. So it really does depend. Obviously, they are, disheartened to be in the situation where they are. But, it's really about trying to stay positive and keep clients, focusing. Yes, you've made you've been manipulated, or whatever word you want to describe it, onto this platform. Whether some of you seem to have known about it well, or some of you didn't and have no idea why you're in Australia, or why Australia is involved, and you live nowhere near Australia. So it really has kind of been a situation where some people are just very down on themselves and angry at their advisors, but also angry at themselves for doing it. And our thing is like, look, everything's seen toward. You've got really big names here, Interactive Brokers. You're investing in Vanguard and iShares and all the rest of it. So it's not like this typical offshore scheme where you hear some random DFM that's paying money here and paying money there. These are all massive household names with billions and trillions. And the idea that you think you would, doing this would get you in a situation where, they potentially siphoned off a massive chunk of your money, and, you've got other potential issues or years ahead of you in terms of legal aspects to get the other missing money, would just never have crossed your mind. And why would it?
Interestingly though, John, would you say there's some clients that almost I know this from talking with the whole of the IFA team, would you say there's almost some clients that don't really seem to be learning from their mistakes? For example, we're having a lot of Brite advisors coming through. I'll say it so you don't have to, John, relatively aggressive, and furthermore than aggressive, a little bit overconfident and arrogant. So sending messages through like, hey, this is my Brite Advisors pension. I'll only be sharing information about this. I will not be sharing any personal information with you. To which we're just like, yeah, but we're SEC regulated, we're FCA regulated. Like, it doesn't work like that. You can't just go in and write an advice report. And do you think this is maybe an inclination of like, if they think that's how you go and get financial advice, not I'm saying that's how they got it at the beginning, but if that's their mindset and their outlook, why are those clients now not being more thorough and saying, yes, I've read the legislation. Actually, I called the SEC or I called the FCA. They explained that if you meet a financial advisor, you have to complete a full fact find in order for them to understand your situation. Why do you think those clients are potentially either doing the same thing as they've done before or being this defensive and arrogant about trying to get help now on their Brite Advisors pension?
Yeah, again, not everyone, but there is certainly a decent sliver of people getting in contact with us because, as everyone knows, at Cameron James, we don't do any, we don't go to you. You come to us, whether it's via this YouTube channel or our website. So people are coming to us knowing, their situation with Brite, having watched one of our YouTubes or articles. And yes, you do have some people who are kind of, siloing off the UK pension stuff, saying, no, I just want advice on this and I don't care about that, and I'm not telling you that. And you're right, that is indicative that they were not receiving properly, thoroughly regulated, full fat financial planning advice, because all that stuff is required, to actually do this job properly. How the heck can you tell someone, oh, you should invest in this and do that, if you don't know about their US pensions or their savings or their income or what they want to do in life, or their kids, and do they have education costs? So if you don't know these things, how the heck, forget about what the regulator tells you you're required to know, like how the heck could you possibly feel comfortable doing that, advising what pension's best or what portfolio is best, or help out with drawdowns if you don't know that? And if you're coming through with this transactional mentality, you are the perfect mark for these people, because they are going to sell you on the transaction and sell you down a 15% commission structure where you paid 8% on a bond and 6% on funds, and then you're paying trail for this, So they will play on your transactional fear, your transactional desires, and manipulate you and take you for a ride. And if you have this mentality going forward, especially if you're in the QROP structure, in the pension, it's still subject to the UK, the pension transfer rules that came out in November 2021, which are very strict. But in QROPs, you're not going to have this. And there's a very good chance you're opening yourselves up to be taken for a ride on round 2 or 3 if you don't open up and come with a very, transparent approach. We understand, I understand the defensive mentality, and you're distrusting. Like, look, trust me, we're pretty distrusting of a lot of advisors out there ourselves. So we don't blame you. From what we see, and especially this situation with Brite doesn't exactly fill us with much confidence or change our view. But you really need to open up and get a we only take on clients that, we intend to do work with for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, work with your kids, work with your grandkids. And if you don't have that same kind of mentality and approach when looking for a financial advisor, there's a good chance you're going to find a bad one. And so, yeah, that is true. And then there are some who kind of understand and go through it and are fully transparent, and they're our ideal clients and who we like to deal with and really value what we do and can see how we're different. But yeah, you really do have to, open up that, become vulnerable almost to it to allow you to receive proper advice, which you haven't received to this point in time.
Yeah, and it's interesting there, I will get back to my question soon. It's interesting there, you mentioned about the second time. For some of you, it's like the first or the second time. Can you please explain that in a little bit more detail as to what's happened here and how Brite Advisors, basically there was a point where people already had an existing product or an existing offshore bond, and they were then recommended into a new product and a new offshore or whatever platform, and the exit penalty was going to be paid and this and that. Can you give our viewers a bit of an understanding? The people who've already been through it, they'll obviously resonate with this, and perhaps the people it didn't happen to, they might feel a little bit better about the fact if they didn't go through that as well. So feel free to fill us in on that, John.
Yeah, so and this is very common for the US clients in particular. A large chunk of Brite USA clients, did not come to Brite USA in the first place. They were actually with another firm. I'm not going to go name names, but they're the infamous one we all know, who were originally sold into, and there was legal action taken and fines levied and the firm taken out of business and sold to Brite USA with the idea was, this was a brand new independent entity. As it turns out, that may or may not be the case. We'll let the SEC and all that decide, not our place to comment. But what happened was they were put into a commission structure, whether that was a bond, that would very likely to be a bond, and how a bond works is, again, this is preying on your transactional nature. We'll just charge you for the initial, and you don't realize that actually, and this was part of the SEC charging document, lack of disclosure, that you're actually paying back a big fee the bond paid to the initial advisor. So, that might take 8 years to pay back. And what Brite did was once they kind of took over that company and moved all these clients, what they did was they brought out this brand new shiny platform backed by interactive brokers, very different to to an FCA regulated platform in terms of how it invests and some of the things it can do in terms of deal order flows and selling all that data and how all that works. And what happened was they said, right, move with us, we'll put you onto this nice platform, we'll get you out of the Isle of Man or the bond or whatever it is, onto this nice shiny platform, into these nice low cost ETFs. Oh, and if you had an exit penalty, don't worry, we will lend you the money effectively and transition over your exit penalty, your deferred commission onto the platform. Now, if you tried to do that on an FCA regulated platform, first of all, the FCA regulated platform would probably look at you like you got 3 heads. Second, they probably really reconsider, allowing any terms of business with you, because it sounds like you want to do things that definitely aren't okay from a regulatory aspect. And that's what happens. So a lot of people, again, preying on the fee is sunk. You've got to pay that back regardless. But, paying back, 5% or whatever it is up front is a lot more painful than paying it back over 5 years. So they preyed on that, deferred you onto the platform. They got paid back their effective loan. Now there's talks of how did they fund that? Well, maybe they were actually funding it all from client money, which is what it seems to be from the SEC and the receivers report. So how could they give those loans? Well, actually, you were almost loaning to yourself, or other clients were loaning to you. And so now you've gone from a commission structure with a firm that got struck off. Now you're onto a platform structure with your exit penalty moved over. Maybe it's all paid off now. And now this firm's getting struck off or might get struck off. So you've basically, you've jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire again, again. And it's making sure now that, you get to this situation where, you don't do that again. And, one of our big things is, and I put it in our document we wrote, the blog we wrote, firms who are saying, oh, let's move over your exit penalty onto a new platform. turn around and run away and keep running, because that is telling you that firm is not ethical, will take advantage of you, very likely. Okay, not guaranteed, but these are all practices that, if you were trying to do in the UK or the US, as is the case now with the charging structure from the SEC, will get you in a lot of trouble. So having a clean break, removing all the kind of exit penalties, paying them off, and getting into a nice clean, FCA regulated investment structure is very likely the way to go, and will help make sure that you don't choose another, poor advisor, for want of a better word. So that's what's happened there, and how people have kind of gone through. It's round two.
Understood. And what would be your advice at the moment to Brite Advisor clients who are receiving cold calls out of the blue from financial advisors in various parts of the world? And also, where do you think those Brite Advisors information, such detailed niche things such as their mobile phone number, how do you think financial advisory firms are obtaining such information?
Yeah, so the one thing if you've got a UK pension, so you're not in a Key Ops, you haven't moved to Malta or Gibraltar, wherever you are, and you're still sitting in a SIP, a lot of these clients are in the PSG SIP or maybe a London Colonial SIP, anyone cold calling you and directly talking about your pensions is breaking the law or the regulations. The FCA has explicitly banned cold calling for pensions. Now, there is a bit of a grey area because you can still talk about retirement planning and go, have you thought about retirement? Oh, yeah. Okay, and what about your pensions? So there's that angle. But again, it's kind of showing you an unscrupulous, unethical way of doing things. In terms of, how did they get your number? Well, probably very dodgily. Whether they've stalked you on LinkedIn, someone's giving you their contact details, they've shared this, there's probably all sorts of data breaches and all the rest of it that have allowed them to obtain this information. So again, as I put in that article, any cold calls, and this goes for anything in life, whether it's you're in the US and there's a Northwestern Mutual guy trying to sell you an annuity you don't need, or someone saying if you need a new cleaner for your house, just ignore them. Do it the old-fashioned organic way. Search it for yourself. Don't allow someone to come to you, because invariably, how have they found out who you are? Are they going to be the type of firm? How desperate are they for business that they are going out of their way to find themselves in that grey area of obtaining your contact details and then trying to, kind of manipulate you into becoming their client? Just not something you want to deal with. So, no, our kind of opinion is cold calling is icky, for my millennial way of describing it. And invariably, a lot of times, a lot of people who end up in really bad situations. In fact, a lot of you watching this video, you probably got into the situation you are now from picking up the phone from a cold call and allowing that person to, did you think about your pension? Oh, what about this? And that's how you got here. So, yeah, absolutely. Cold calling is a huge no-no. And you don't want very unlikely want to be going down the route of, using the firm that cold called you.
Yeah, and one of the other concerning things that I picked up from the financial advisory team as well was people after the cold calls being told on the call, you're everyone else is transferring out, everyone else is moving, you're one of the few people, you're going to get left behind, blah 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 blah. And then you go and look online, and as I just asked you 10 or 15 minutes ago about transfers out, it's not even possible currently speaking to transfer off the platform to another financial advisor. So there's a lot of stuff going on the cold calling that we've picked up from clients, but also the way in which, if you think about it, how many Brite Advisor, well, you might know the answer, John. Do you know roughly how many Brite Advisors pension clients there are, to the nearest 100 or so?
I believe it was over 1,000, or the best part of 1,000 at the time. Again, I've only got that from the records the SEC have disclosed and McGrath-Nickel, but again, they don't actually know the full number because the accounting records and the bookkeeping were so dreadful, and this customer relationship. But yeah, it's over 1,000 again, with the vast majority of them.
So yeah, if we think about that, say you're cold calling, the chances of finding a Brite Advisors client by generically cold calling New York or generically cold calling America or Europe, whatever it is, the chances are so minuscule that the person would have a Brite Advisors pension. So there has to be something going on there. How are all these Brite Advisor clients being picked up to them and harassed, in my opinion, by other financial advisory firms out there? There must be data breaches or something going on, because the percentage chance of the financial advisor just so happening to pick out a client out of random from LinkedIn is very, very slim. So it feels like there's something happening there where there's specific lists of people's mobile phone numbers and email addresses where they're being marketed from a different financial advisory firm that obviously should not have had that information from the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a reason why the FCA considers cold calling and people making financial decisions from cold calling the number one scam risk in the new legislation, because invariably it's unscrupulous and untrustworthy people doing it. Not always the case, but it does kind of show a lack of care and attention and perhaps ethics if you go down that route.
Yeah. So Jonathan, my final question. What advice would you give to someone worried or concerned about their Brite Advisors pension?
So the first thing I say is, a lot of people go, oh, my money's missing. It isn't. You are still invested. All the money is still invested there. It's still on the platform. It's still into all these ETFs run by Vanguard and iShares and all the rest of it. So it's not like all your money and your hard work and savings and your retirement is completely ruined. Because the vast majority of the money will be there, but it's still a rubbish situation. There is likely going to be a decent haircut to the amount of money you're going to be able to transfer out. But again, my glass half full picture is, well, what happens if you sell down to cash and the market has a big dip? You could actually end up being up on where you'd be if you hadn't have done that. So again, probably unlikely, but just to kind of put it in context. So worried or concerned, get in touch, go through the advice process, try and find someone who isn't like someone you've been dealing with before. Speak to someone who does have your best interests in heart. Again, I appreciate it's not easy to be able to sort that out and figure that out, because there is so much unscrupulous actions being taken out there. But there are also a lot of good advisors out there. The chances are though they're not the ones calling you on your phone from a private number. Or stalking you on LinkedIn, or sending you a random Facebook message unsolicited, or whatever it is. So yeah, are you worried or concerned, or should you be? Yes, because there are issues here, and it might be many months or years before it's all resolved. That doesn't mean you won't be able to transfer out for many years, but it might not mean that all the legal action and every last penny you've got has been taken, and then there might be class action suits taken down the road and all the rest of it. So yeah, you stay upbeat as much as you can. Speak with someone, stay abreast, find that advisor who will be there for you to kind of give you a stiff drink and a chaise long and vent about everything, and be the person there to help guide you to a better outcome. Given the horrible circumstances you find yourself in.
Yes, yeah, and if I could add to that as well, I think it's just really important to look out for one another as well. A lot of the Brite Advisors we've spoken to, Brite Advisor clients we've spoken to, they seem to be kind of in communication and talking with each other as well. So look out for anyone else out there if you do think you find a good financial advisor. If you want to speak with myself, if you want to speak with Jonathan directly, he's our senior advisor here at Cameron James. As always, you can drop me an email on dominic.murray@cjfinance.co.uk. Alternatively, you can email Jonathan directly on jonathan.laws@cjfinance.co.uk, or you can go to the description section below, as always, and find a day and a time which is suitable for yourself to have a free initial consultation to learn a little bit more about your situation and how we can help. Jonathan, thank you very much for joining today. I know you only just flew back from Rome yesterday, so thank you for getting up early this morning and getting on here. And thank you for joining, John.
Yeah, more than welcome. Always do my best to try and help.
Very good. All right. As always, guys, take care of your UK pension assets and speak soon.